Hello and welcome to the Charlotte Content Marketing Podcast. My name is Andrew Rusnak. I'm the founder of Charlotte Content Marketing. As we draw to a close here in 2024, it has been an exciting year. It's been an exciting year for marketing, and we've done a lot of fun stuff. We've achieved a lot in our personal and professional lives and endeavors. So that's been awesome. We've gotten to meet some amazing people and work with some incredible clients, and we are forever grateful for those experiences, and we look forward to a wonderful 2025. And so speaking of 2025, today I want to talk about what we're anticipating for 2025, and what you can look forward to in the new year, and some trends and some things to keep an eye on that will make your life easier and your business more profitable. So the first thing, there's no way that I can escape talking about this, so I'm just going to go ahead and get it out there. From the very beginning, AI, artificial intelligence, everyone is talking about it. There is no escape from it, and maybe there shouldn't be. AI technology, let's back up for a second. AI technology has been around for decades in one way or another. So what we're calling AI today is new in the sense that we're talking about transformer technology that can basically take data and predict what order to put that data in. So what these large language models do, like ChatGPT, they scour the internet. It's like a giant research assistant that will take information data that it trains on from across the web. So websites and social media and anywhere that it can get data. It then takes that data, and it's like a very, very, very complex autocomplete on your phone when you're typing something, and it forces you to type something you didn't mean to type. That's basically what it's doing, but just on a very complex scale. And so when you ask it a question, it's going to take the training data that it has and then say, what is the word that most likely follows this word in this context based on the query that you have supplied. So that's essentially what it's doing. It's not thinking, it is not reasoning in the way that we as humans think of reasoning. There is logic involved, but we're talking more mathematical logic versus logic and reason. So anyway, just to get that out of the way, AI technology, AI in marketing, there's no way to get around it. It is powerful technology when used properly, and it can also be detrimental in a major way when used improperly. So when I say that, what I'm talking about is AI can help you be more productive. AI can help you come up with new ideas. AI can speed along the creation of content, but AI cannot fully replace the human component. It can fake that for a little while. And I will go ahead and I'll take it a step further. I'll say this. So AI art, for instance, art is subjective to begin with, but you can use AI to create images. So you give it a prompt, you say, make an image of a cat moonwalking across a hopscotch court, whatever, and it'll do it. Okay. So then you have to ask, well, what are you going to do with that image? How is that image going to benefit your business? So if we can't find a way to create relevant, meaningful, valuable content, it's cool that we've got this technology. It's neat. I've played with it plenty and come up with all kinds of neat little pictures and funny things. But at the end of the day, how is this going to make you money? The other issue with AI art or chat GPT and AI generated blog posts and things like that is there's a sameness to it, and more that's becoming apparent. So when this technology first hit the mainstream, it was like, wow, this is incredible. You can ask it to write anything and it'll do so convincingly. But as time has gone on, you have to remember, once again, this technology is limited by its training data, and it doesn't think beyond that training data. It's not going to come up with new ideas. It can rearrange existing ideas. So if you were to say, okay, write a blog post on widgets. So it's going to write a blog post on widgets, and you think, okay, that's great. Then you say the next week, write a blog post on, 5 ways to use widgets. And so it does. But then this time you notice there's a little bit of what was already included in the first general blog post about widgets included in there. And you're like, okay, that's fine. No big deal. I mean, you have to include some of that information. And then the third week, you ask it to write another thing about widgets. And this time now it's including information from the first two because its knowledge is limited and it can only rearrange things in so many ways. Now, the problem then becomes, let's say your competition, who also makes widgets, is doing the same thing. Well, now you're both producing the same content. It's not going to be exactly the same, but they're asking the thing to write about widgets as well. And once again, because it's limited in its training data and it can only tell you so much and it can only spit out what it knows based on that training data, it can only rearrange it in so many different ways. Now your competition is writing basically the same things that you are. And there's going to be a lot of similarities in terms of phrasing and grammar and the arrangement, the formatting, all that kind of thing. And so whether that helps or hurts in terms of SEO, and then whether that helps or hurts in terms of how a customer or potential customer is going to see things, that kind of remains to be seen. So usually if Google detects what it considers duplicate content, it may, in some cases, basically devalue the lesser content based on other ranking factors. So if you've already got issues working against you, your website is not up to par, it's not as robust, it doesn't establish topical authority as well as your competition, and then you're both putting out the same content, well, all things being equal, aside from that content, you're still going to be losing out. Okay, so I would just be cautious about using any kind of AI generated text without editing it yourself, without rearranging it yourself, without adding to it yourself. There's nothing wrong with using it as a starting point. I frequently will ask to create an outline if I have a complex idea for a blog post or I'm writing something. I will use ChatGPT or Claude or occasionally Google has got Gemini. And I will use that as a basis to form an outline, and then I will fill that in. And oftentimes that requires me to either rely on knowledge or one of our writers to rely on knowledge. And we'll have to do research and talk with subject matter experts and things like that. But just leaving it as is, that as it's spit out straight from a large language model, is usually not going to be a good idea for SEO or for your customers. So what does this mean for 2025? Well, traditional search meaning Google, basically. Traditional search has definitely changed. AI overviews are now being included in Google search results. And what those are basically is where Google takes the search results, summarizes them, and then gives you an answer. So I'm going to tell it like this. Informational searches have become zero-click searches. What that means is that Google is supplying the answer to basic questions, and it's doing so by using AI to scrape your content and then summarize that. Now, Google will include a link to the content where it got the answers from. As to whether or not someone will click that link, it really depends on what the search intent was. So if they're just asking a simple question, how many inches are in a foot, they get the answer, then they may not click further because this was just an informational search. They were just looking for the answer to a question. However, if they're looking for how many inches are in a foot for a home improvement construction project involving pine boards, and your site happens to have a blog post or some article or some other resource on it that can answer that question and give more context and more detail and really provide a robust answer to that. And we've taken the time to make sure that our headers are correct, to make sure that our meta title and description is correct and all of that, then it's more likely that someone will click through to investigate further. So basically, your content in 2025 needs to go above and beyond. And this kind of goes back to what I was just saying about AI and getting it to write answers for you or write content for you, is that it's just going to provide surface level content. It's not going to be able to provide expert level content that comes across as written by a human and has personality. And that's where the editing that I was talking about comes in, because anybody now can generate these surface level articles or blog posts or web pages or web resources. So you need to stick out from the pack in order to surface in search results, in order to surface in AI search results, and to form connections with customers. So content is actually more important than ever because it's so easy, or I should take a step back. Quality, relevant content, helpful content is more important than ever because it is so easy for anyone to spit out garbage these days. So you need to stick out from all of that by relying on your expertise in your industry, by relying on your subject matter experts on your team. And that's also what we do at Charlotte Content Marketing. While we have writers and content producers who have expert knowledge in certain subjects, they don't know everything. I don't know everything. And so we have to rely on subject matter experts. So when we're working with a client, we're going to sit down and interview subject matter experts who are a part of the team. And if we have questions going forward, we may schedule a meeting or send an email and try to get robust answers to develop that topical authority and flesh out the content that we're producing. So aside from AI, another thing that is going to be more important in 2025 when it comes to digital marketing, when it comes to content marketing, is going to be relationships. Now, relationships have always been important in any kind of marketing campaign. I mean, you're forming relationships with customers and you're maintaining those relationships. That's why our tagline is building, fostering, furthering, because our focus is on building relationships, fostering relationships, and furthering relationships with customers. And so when we're thinking about the content that we develop, when we're thinking about a content strategy, we incorporate all three of those steps in there. And those three steps will then have many steps in between, and we tailor everything to each campaign and to each client and to each client's customers. But that's the way that I encourage you to think about relationships: building, fostering, and furthering. But the reason why I say that relationships are more important in 2025 when it comes to marketing is that you will want to rely more on partnerships and networking and relationships with other content producers, with influencers or micro influencers. You want to be focused on brand building. Even if you have an established brand, what we want to focus on is brand building. And what that means is we're trying to raise brand awareness across the web. And whether we're talking about a podcast like this, and Charlotte Content Marketing, we specialize in podcast production. So we, in the Charlotte area, will bring all of the equipment to your workspace, get everything set up, record the podcast, take it, edit it in the studio. We upload and distribute it to Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, all of those. We take care of cover art. We help with planning and all that good stuff. So it's an end-to-end service, and we take care of all that. But podcasts, video content, guest posting, getting interviews, basically digital PR is going to be more important in 2025 because we want to get brand mentions in as many relevant, high authority places as possible. Now, prior to this, we still wanted to do that, but the focus was on getting inbound links. So we wanted to earn links pointing back to our site. That's still important, but it's not just about the link anymore. Now we need to be feeding information to the AI systems that are out there scraping content from the web. And one of the ways that we do that is we get in as many relevant places with as much relevant detail as possible. So it's not just enough to get a casual mention somewhere. We want to make sure that with that mention, we also get details like your location, your industry, some history behind your company, the products and services you offer. We want to give AI the information that it will need to then say, hey, I've seen company XYZ mentioned 100 times as I've been scraping the web in conjunction with Charlotte, North Carolina and widgets. And when someone asks, what's a good widget maker in Charlotte, North Carolina, it's going to look through the data that it has, its training data, and it's going to come back, hopefully, with your brand as a recommendation, with your company as a recommendation. And so that's where digital PR and forming relationships and networking is important. And that's where working with an agency like Charlotte Content Marketing comes in, because we can handle that for you. We can serve as your representation, look for opportunities, reach out to make those connections, and reach out to pitch opportunities to get things like guest posts, podcast guest appearances, things like that for you, so that you maintain a professional position and you're not reaching out on behalf of yourself to try to get those things as well. And lastly, so that I don't drag this on for too long, in 2025, mobile will continue to be a focus. And mobile has been a focus for quite some time now. Over the past decade, more and more people are using mobile instead of desktop, or they're using mobile heavily in conjunction with desktop. We talk about the second screen, which is basically where someone's watching TV and they have their phone open and they're doing something at the same time, or they're using their computer at their desk, but then they also have the mobile phone in their hand and they're scrolling through social media or reading an article, skimming through an article or something like that. So mobile is going to continue its dominance, and designing content for mobile is slightly different from desktop, but only because people are looking for very skimmable content. when it comes to desktop. Now, the exception to that is things like a podcast. So this podcast can go on 20, 30 minutes. And people oftentimes listen to podcasts in their car or on public transportation when they're commuting to and from work. And so or when they're at the gym, things like that. And so a podcast can be a bit more long format, and you can, get more information into a podcast. But when we're talking about written content, we want to focus on optimized images. We want to focus on headings and subheadings and bulleted lists, things that are very easy to skim. And so we have to tighten the content as much as possible without losing value and without losing the meaning, all while still maintaining the same branding. So keeping the same brand voice, the same principles that we would normally use for longer form content. And I'll say this when it comes to mobile, one of the things that has recently kind of changed, I think it was October of 2024, Google basically said that what was known as core web vitals. So this was a set of measurements that determined how long it took for a website to load. And if your website took a long time to load, that was factored into ranking. That is no longer the case, or I shouldn't say it's no longer the case. If you have a totally garbage website that does not load, that takes forever to load, then that can still affect you negatively in terms of search rank and in terms of user experience, obviously. But Google has basically said that it is not going to place as much emphasis going forward on core web vitals, or basically the loading experience of your site. So we still want to provide a good user experience just because we want to provide a good user experience. But in terms of ranking and being a ranking factor, core web vitals is no longer as big of an issue. So we can kind of take that off the table. That's more of a part of technical SEO, and that's been a big headache as web technology has gotten more complex. And people want all kinds of animations and interactive forms and apps and things like that going on websites themselves and through mobile sites. And that can slow down the loading speed and the operation speed of a website. So it's good that that's one less thing to worry about, and we can then focus more on the content. So those are just 3 things that I think that you should know about as a business owner or as a marketer in 2025. Those are going to be 3 things to keep in the back of your mind as you're going about creating content. And obviously, if you have any questions or you would like to discuss working with an agency like Charlotte Content Marketing, if you're finding you just don't have the time, and that's a good thing. That means that you're busy, but you don't have the time to devote to planning and content strategy and content production and analytics and all that fun stuff. We would be more than happy to help you out with that. And you can get in touch with us by giving a call to 704-323-6762. Again, that's 704-323-6762, and we would be happy to schedule a no obligation consultation and kind of toss around some ideas with you. You can also reach us online at charlottecontentmarketing.com. We have a contact form on the website where you can fill in some information about your project and your budget and all that, and we can get back in touch and schedule a time to chat about your goals and what your vision is seeking to accomplish, both in 2025 and beyond. And then also you can email us directly at hello@charlottecontentmarketing.com, and someone will get back to you quickly, and we can work with you from there. So I want to thank you so much for tuning in to the Charlotte Content Marketing Podcast, and I am wishing you a very happy and safe new year and a very profitable and exciting 2025 as we all move forward together. And take care out there, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks.